What's going on, guys? So ever since the days of Julius Caesar, who lived, I believe, about 60 years before the Common Era, or even before, he might not be the one that originated it, but he had a tactic for conquering Gaul called divide and conquer. So you had all these tribes in Gaul, and if they had united against Caesar, things might have went much worse for him than they did. He might have been thwarted or might have had much more serious losses. But he divided the tribes and conquered them. That's divide and conquer. I forget what the Latin term for it is. It's divida et impera or something. And people still fall for it to this day. And it's so easy. People are so easy. And it's so easy to get the controlled opposition to get people into the divide and conquer, because that's what controlled opposition is basically for. And the perfect example of this is Nick Fuentes. I don't even know if I could say his name on YouTube and not get just completely shadow banned. Don't worry, YouTube. I'm not saying nice things about Nick Fuentes. He says a lot of things that are absolutely true, that are absolutely relevant, that are absolutely spot on, but he is also an avowed racist. He told Candace Owens that he used to think of himself as a racialist. Now he just thinks he's just totally racist and a troll. He later went on a rant about Candace, saying that Candace was taking him way too seriously and that they just really love each other. And like, you're taking it way too seriously, Candace. It's not that big a deal. Meanwhile, he absolutely trashed her and got a reaction out of her. And then he's like, it's not a big deal. And it's just like, and listen, I don't really know. I'm learning more. I'm starting to notice. But there's also, it's the same thing with any ideology. Like, I used to, after 9/11, when the people saying it was an inside job were absolute maniacs and kooks, not actually people just spreading the truth about what actually happened. The biggest argument of the day was not whether it was a black op by the Israeli and American intelligence agencies. It was whether Islam commanded Muslims to do such things or not. Were the jihadists following their religion as commanded, or were they bastardizing the scripture, right? And I delved into that argument so thoroughly that for 7 years I probably had in my library, on my bookshelf, more Islamic scripture than your average American mosque. I had dozens of books. I had 5 different interpretations of the Quran. I had the 2 authoritative hadiths, which are the sayings and examples of the Prophet. I had Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim in their entirety. One was 10 volumes. I think Bukhari was 10 volumes and Muslim was 4 volumes. I had 7 out of 9 of the Tafsir Ibn Kathir. So Ibn Kathir wrote a Tafsir, which is a commentary on, and so he took every verse of the Quran and wrote a commentary on the meaning of it. It was 9 volumes, if I remember correctly, and I had 7 of them. It was very rare. I had several. I forget what there's a name for it, but it was basically a biography of Muhammad. I had several of those. I had so many books on it, guys. I had everything. And I came to the conclusion, what's funny is, I came to the conclusion that the Islamic faith does indeed call for Muslims to carry out jihad against unbelievers just by virtue of them not being Islamic. It's a very cruel religion to people who are not Islamic. But then I realized that every single terrorist attack was actually a black op by the government, CIA, FBI, Mossad, MI5 in Britain. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And it turns out that human beings are human beings first before they're Christians or Jews or Muslims or whatever. So maybe, like a lot of Christians just cherry pick their verses and they ignore the ones that are kind of nasty or kind of gross, and they just, you know what I mean? And just I mean, you can very easily do that if you don't fully understand Islamic dogma, Islamic scripture. You could there's plenty in the scripture to pick out and say, this is, Islam is a religion of peace and whatnot. But mostly people just want to be left alone. Some family in Yemen or I don't know, Sudan or Pakistan or Afghanistan, they've got their own problems. You know what I mean? They just want to be left alone. They just want to raise their family and worship their God and be left alone until bombs start dropping and things of that nature. And it's the same with any religion. It's the same with Judaism. So I went off on a huge tangent there, but the point is that Nick Fuentes is saying that it's not a Zionist problem. It's a problem with Jews in general. Just, never mind there's people getting arrested and brutally oppressed in Israel right now who are Jews, who are protesting against the genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. So it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if this was an actual historic, if this actually happened or if it was just dramatized in the movie, but in the movie Malcolm X, Malcolm, I think, is Denzel Washington's Malcolm X is walking through like a campus, like a college campus or something, and this white girl comes up to him and says, "I'm so sorry for what my people have done to your people. I'm on your side. Is there anything? What can I do to help you in your cause?" And he looks her stone in the face and says nothing and walks away. And that's what the divide and conquer issue is, where you go, you've got some very evil Jewish people in the world, and they do have an overwhelmingly disproportionate influence on world affairs. And that's what happens. It's not so much their religion. There was a guy named Amschel Rothschild, and I think it was one of the battles between Britain and Napoleon. I think it was Waterloo. Britain had beaten Napoleon, and Rothschild's people ran back to Britain and said that Napoleon had won. And this caused the British stock market to crash. And then Rothschild bought up the entire British economy for pennies on the pound. And then when they found out that Napoleon had actually won, the stock market skyrockets. And that's basically how the Rothschild banking dynasty was born, as far as I know. Now, when you can do that, when you can basically purchase the entire economy of the biggest empire on the planet, the sun never sets on the British Empire, that's what they used to say, and Rothschild owned it. It's not so much just like an inherent, maybe it is, I don't know. I haven't read the Talmud. The Talmud's pretty nasty, especially the Babylonian Talmud. There's two Talmuds. There's the Babylonian and maybe the Jerusalem, I think. There's two, but the Babylonian in particular, I believe, is particularly nasty. They hate Jesus. They hate you. Jesus was a sorcerer who is in hell, boiling in his own shit, according to the Talmud. You can look that up, and they hate you. You're cattle to them. If they follow the Talmud, of course, and you call yourself a Jew. Like, I don't think that Seth Rogen follows the Talmud. He's a Jew. I don't think he follows the Talmud. He might be sympathetic to Jewish causes and everything, and he might be a little bit cognitive dissonance about what's going on in Israel. I don't know what his stance is, but he's not Rabbi Shmuley. Rabbi Shmuley is a fucking demon. He's a demon from hell. He's the worst kind of Zionist piece of garbage you've ever heard of. So, my battery's about to run out. So, it's been such a great talk to you. Anyway, the point is, if you're in the divide and conquer game, no matter how much other truth they're saying, They are probably controlled opposition. And I have and if you look at what happened to Nick during J6, he said and did a lot of things that were a lot worse than people who got scooped up and thrown into black ops prisons and for a long time. And he walked away scot-free, and he had his money frozen and everything. You got to understand, just because he had his money frozen and he got deplatformed doesn't mean he's not a Fed. Same thing happened to Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a Fed. Alex Jones is controlled opposition. He wasn't always that way, I don't think. There's a lot of people who say he was. But I think they got to him. And I think Nick Fuentes is the same way. Maybe in January 6th, he cut some deals. Or maybe it happened before then, I don't know. But he is an op. At the very least, if he doesn't understand divide and conquer, he's a fucking moron. And if he does understand divide and conquer and he's still pushing it, then he's an op. All right, I'm gonna go before my battery dies. I love you guys. You know, we're all human beings, first and foremost. And if you play into that game of you know, identity politics, you're really fucking it up. You really are. Get your shit together.